Today I have with me one of my great friends, and even more than that, way back in Quest when we were first getting started with what became the largest management program in chiropractic, I had to pick some people to do seminars with me, especially, and not just do them with me, but literally run them. Because on any weekend, we might have a seminar in Atlanta, Chicago, and Seattle going on at the same time. And I try to jump from one place to the other. And obviously, the people that were in a location became the main teachers of that. And the first person of all the people I ever picked in the profession to work with and to work with me and by me and for me and to become a muse for me and all sorts of stuff is my good friend Tom Preston. So I can't say anything better about him. The only negative thing I can say is he lives way too far up in Canada. It's too cold most of the time. But other than the fact that you can't ever get to him to go out to dinner because you just can't get there from anywhere, he's one of the best human beings I know. So Tom, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks, Guy. We have a saying in Canada, we have 10 months of winter and 2 months of bad snowmobiling. So, there is that.
That's right. I always loved what Johnny Carson used to say about weather in LA. He goes, we have 4 seasons. There's just before summer, summer, just after summer, and next summer. So,
yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah. So it's all perspective, which is a perfect lead in to what we want to talk about today with this notion of flourishing, right, as a human being. We sat down with the people from the psychology department at Emory and developed a 20-question test to measure a person's psychological, emotional, and social well-being, knowing that the brain, when it's working at positive, is highly more productive, efficient. We've all worked as, and I'm saying this not to you, but to just kind of introduce this, we've all worked at days and in positions where we were stressed and in a negative state. And when we do that, we make mistakes, we're not efficient, we alienate people around us, all those kinds of things, versus when our brain is working at positive, as William Seligman, who came up with the idea of positive psychology out of the University of Pennsylvania, with all the research has shown is that a brain working at positive is better, more efficient, more loving, all those kinds of things. So this notion of flourish that we've built is designed to do that. And one of the primary things that you and I talked about, and you did some video work for us in this area, teaching work, was in the area of being passionate about work. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was going to say, just lob me a softball, Guy. Yeah. Well, you know what? I've you take that from a couple of perspectives, Guy. But I've been around long enough now that we've lost some people close to us, right? Both younger people due to illness or accidents or whatever, and certainly have lost lots of like uncles and aunts and that kind of stuff, right? And so it just, every time that comes up for me, it's always a chance to just check back in and go, man, it's a great ride, but it doesn't go on forever. This thing called, earthbound life, right? So it's like, while you're here, you can either model and mediocre and bitch, moan, and complain, or else you could look at it another way. So, I mean, that's a pretty simplistic thing. But for me, Guy, the key then is to say, well, then how is it that, because I mean, you can kind of fake it till you make it, which I don't know, to me, had never really resonated that strong. You understand intellectually, but I feel that people's BS meters are far better than that, and they can pick up, a fake anytime, right? So then the question is, why couldn't you be passionate about your life? Why couldn't you be passionate about your work? And I would say, Guy, one of my experiences from consulting for so many years is that there's a lot of people that just aren't crystal clear about who they are, who they're not, and what they're here to do. That sense of purpose, that sense of meaning. Yeah. And because out of that sense of purpose and meaning becomes priorities, goals, and so on. And when your priorities and goals are linked to the reason you're here, it's harder not to be passionate about what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? So I'm actually writing a book I called Procrastinate Your Way to Success. Okay. Right? Because I feel like everybody needs to be procrastinating on things that aren't core to them, that aren't truly things that are coming from source, from above, down, inside out, to use the chiropractic lexicon, and or things that are just as a byproduct are making them light up from within, like bring that passion into their work,
And so I think every human being that I've ever talked to wants what you just talked about, right? They want that passion, not only in work, but in their relationships and their sports and everything they do. And they find it in little pieces, right? Some people get passionate about golf on the weekend and Some people do find passion in the work, but for most people, they're kind of struggling to do what you talked about, which is to find that purpose, right? How do you get started? Where would you begin that journey?
Wow, that's a great, well, it's a great question, loaded question. We only have 10 minutes, right, guy?
Is that right?
But, no, I was going to say, like, for me, it's a journey from within, right? To go inside and you can literally start by doing just an inventory, guy, of the people, the places, the ideas and events that light you up, that bring you resonance, that bring you joy, that bring you spark, right? And then by just doing an introspective journey on those things, you can start to, like, funnel down into what some of those core pieces are, right? The things that you love to do, to be, and to have can definitely be insights into that. So that's not like the only starting place, but it's a good starting place. I also would offer, guys, like doing a core values review or core values analysis. I found to be a great tool, because when I stop and reflect on the bigness of what a human being is, that subset of the universal intelligence, it's like as soon as I put that into words, I feel like I minimize it. It's bigger than I can put into words, right? So the core values analysis or core values hierarchy is one of the best tools I've found to try and approximate that, to really understand, what's at someone's core and where they go from there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. As you know, in the Flourish section, there are three components to it. One is just a list of daily menu things, conversations like what we're having right now, that help people get aware of some of the things from passionate work to how to find that innate spark, to what neuroplasticity is. And then there's a 5 21-day programs that came out of Harvard on how to create a brain to work it positive, right? You don't just have to wake up in the morning and say, well, gosh, it feels like a good day, I think I'll have a good day. But you feel like a victim of your environment rather than controlling it. As Harvard came up with 21-day programs to literally be able to get your brain and control it, so you can make it work it positive when you want. But what you're talking about is encapsulated in what we call the four core skill sets of happiness. And one of the comments was, we're not saying you have to do these four to be happy, but we've never seen happy, productive people that don't do them. And they are exactly what you just defined. One is resilience, the ability to be in environments and have a wide range of tolerance, rather than to just shut down when you hear a political position or a name of a politician, or in today's world, it's so woke. You just hear the word and you shut down if you don't agree with it. So that resilience, right? The ability to have an expanded zone. And then integrity, right? Which is honestly looking at who you are and your core values. Self-reflection, the ability to look at how you behaved in a circumstance, what the outcome of that was, and how you were responsible for what occurred inside that environment or circumstance. And then, of course, the last area is the skill sets on how to change once you realize who you are and what you do and what's important. How do you change into what you have? So from what I'm hearing you say, that's kind of the process of, as you said, looking at those core values, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say one of the easiest gateways, guy, to approximate. People don't have that part figured out yet. That's okay. There is some inner work to do, and certainly having a guide or a mentor or a coach or something to help you is makes it fast tracks it. But just even focusing on gratitude, guy, right? I found gratitude to be an amazing gateway to shifting perspective, because as we started this conversation, it's life is about perspective, right? And so if you can stop and count your blessings and just start your day with gratitude, it just opens a gateway up that increases the probability, because in my world there's no guarantees in life, but increase the probability that you're going to just be seeing the world through a different set of glasses, so to speak, which would increase the chance that you're going to have more joy, bliss, happiness, and so on. And you also spoke, guy, too, to controlling your environment, right? And as of this taping, it's kind of a weird time in human history, and people are, like my mother-in-law, God bless her, she's like glued to MSNBC and CNN and stuff, like 6-8 hours a day. Well, I would call that torture, quite frankly, right? And it would be like a form of brainwashing. But, I learned a long time ago that if I control my environment and the influences in it, like I haven't watched a newscast in over 30 years, right? Because I find them unbalanced and derogatory and just not like truthfully not even that accurate, right? So it's like, and particularly to put that into my mind before I went to bed at night, it's like, oh my God, that seems like the worst case scenario too. And and I was going to comment too, Guy, on that. There's an old saying that talks about, you're a byproduct of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Right. So being mindful or intentional about who you're spending time with, just so that you don't have those negative Nellies and naysayers in there that makes it harder to stay in a state of positive mindset and or gratitude and or positive reflection and stuff. Right. Those are just like some really like preliminary but good skill sets to reflect on and actually be in a place of choice about.
Yeah, but, we're going to run out of time, unfortunately, because we could keep this up for a few hours, you and I.
For sure, for sure.
But you brought up the idea of gratitude as a skill set. How would you do that each day? How would you start off your day with gratitude?
You're great. Well, for me, Guy, I start my day like literally almost every day of my life in a morning meditation, which allows me to settle my mind and clear my mind. And then going into just a simple reflection in what I call the hologram of life, looking at different aspects of life, right? Like things as simple as your physical, the fact that I have eyes that I can see the world, Guy. I mean, I take that for granted all the time, but being able to just have gratitude for simple things in the physical world. And then, your intimate relationships and looking at your social life and your friends and your career and the finances. I remember reading a thing one time, Guy said, if you've got change in the cushions of the couch and change, in a thing in the cup holder in your car and stuff, which probably implies you've got like a little spillover. It's probably money in the bank. You're one of the richest 12% of people on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
and yet taking that for granted, Guy, and not having just expressing gratitude to that. So it doesn't take necessarily good into a state of like tearful joy to just stop and count your blessings and just express gratitude. And, what I like to do is just put a timer on it, and say, I'm just going to sit here for X numbers of minutes and just, count my blessings. That's just a simple way to start the day.
Yeah, I think, you can't just wait for it to happen automatically. You have to set up at least some, even if it's simple, some level of a system. I know in my relationships, and, it only took me 71 years to kind of start figuring out how to be in a healthy relationship, but, one of the simplest things is I'm not getting out of bed every morning until I know what I'm going to do today to let the person, my significant other, know that they're the most important person in my life. And I won't get out of bed until I know what that is in the morning.
Wow.
Right? Because if you think it's just going to happen automatically during the course of your day, probably not going to. So it's important to set up all those systems.
Yeah, I agree. And, to me, the summary, guys, just living an intentional life in your ideal based upon your values. Yeah. I mean, that's a simple but overarching statement that, I do my best every day to live by. And I'm human. I fall short sometimes, but at least there's an intention and it's little systems, if you will, as we just talked.
Yeah. Well, and that's what MLiQ Flourish is all about, is getting people started on that path and push down that path faster. So, Tom, thanks. When we can finally cross the border again, we'll get together and break some bread.
Yeah, look forward to it, Guy.